Welcome to the Brain Software Podcast, your source for cool information on hypnosis, NLP, and personal development. This is episode 245, coming at you from Toronto, Canada, the home of Rush, baby. That's right. I'm Chris Thompson, and today Mike Mandel and I are taking a deep dive into NLP. So hang in there.
Disclaimer, we want you to know something important. Something absolutely vital that I'm about to tell you. And I have to be quick, too, because there isn't much time. So I'll get to the point immediately with this choice bit of information that deeply concerns you and has the potential to be positively life-changing. At least I would have gotten to the point if I was able to. But unfortunately, with all this preamble, I've run out of time. Lucci.
And during this rather long preamble, Dr. Van Helsing warned us all about some rather disturbing news he'd received from Transylvania, of all places, in which the castle appeared to be dark and empty, but actually contains a wide variety of wooden coffins.
Get to the point, please.
I will, old chap, don't worry, I will. Where was I?
You were talking about wooden coffins, and I told you to get to the point.
Yes, here we go. Whatever happened to that old wooden coffin in the cellar of Castle Dracula that we used to know and love?
These are days of victory! But let's welcome to the very edge of the Romanian portcullis, the man who admires the stevedore, who unloaded the ship containing a coffin that ran aground on Whitby Beach in the late 1800s. Our very own casket crusader, who is the Keith Richards of hypnosis, Mike Mandel.
Wow, that was a great intro. How many times, Chris, do you get to say stevedore or portcullis in an intro?
That is very weird.
Freaking hilarious.
All right, let's get on to...
What's the usual banter? You got any banter?
Well, I don't know what date this is going live, but I'm just going to mention we are teaching our live 5-day in Toronto in May, 27 through 31. That's the week. It's the Monday through the Friday.
Yep.
It is in Toronto. It's awesome, and you can find out about it by going to our website, just clicking on the events link in the top, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You probably want to check it out because it's fun to hang out.
All right. I want to run something by you. I'm going to start bringing in interesting little things at the beginning. We talked about, not freebasing, I keep wanting to say that, free spotting again.
Free spotting,
the last one, the last podcast. I want to talk to you about, do you know who Jim Stockdale was?
Nope.
Okay. Do you know what the Hanoi Hilton was?
Nope.
Okay, it's interesting. He says fixing his hat and hair.
Something to do with Vietnam?
Yeah. Okay. The Hanoi Hilton was the prisoner of war camp that the Viet Cong ran.
Oh, okay.
And Jim Stockdale was the American serviceman who was the highest ranked person in the Hanoi Hilton. And he was tortured and he went through horror there, as prisoners of war often do. And they talk about the Stockdale paradox because he came out of it and did extremely well. He functioned well. He wrote about his experience. He went back to his old university. Very interesting man. And he was being interviewed about it. And they said, how was it you got through all this? Now, it's not the Viktor Frankl thing where...
Without wrecking his life and PTSD.
and make it through.
Okay.
And the Stockdale paradox is the people who survive, it was hope. He just said he knew he was going to get out. He knew he was going to come through it. And Viktor Frankl sort of did the same thing. But he had not put a time constraint on it. He said, do you know who the guys were that the Hanoi Hilton destroyed? They were the ones who put time frames on. We'll be out by Christmas.
We're going to get
out
out
by
within
Christmas.
X amount of time.
Yeah, and then it wasn't
failure,
Christmas past
failure.
It just kept happening. Mm-hmm. So he never put a time frame on it. It was just a hope. He knew one day he'd do it. And this is not all be said about all of us. It's a very interesting thing. I've got a friend who often does that. And it isn't him. But it's, I know this will be over. Like when COVID was going on, he said, I know this will be over in 30 days. In 30 days, we'll all be back to normal lives. Didn't happen. And he got really, really down as a result of it. So it's not optimism that works for you. It's hope. The idea that you are going to get through. Eventually, you will come through it and be stronger.
That's
what
really
a great way to look at life.
That's really interesting because actually, speaking of the whole COVID
you can say
thing,
something stupid.
In the early days, I did have that time constraint. It's like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. I think everyone did. It's like, oh yeah, we'll be back to normal in 3 months or something like that. And then it didn't happen. And for a while, it was dragging me down.
Yep.
And then I just stopped with the time constraint, never thought about it, but I thought, well, obviously the world just doesn't go on like this forever. That's ridiculous. So it's going to end.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah, and then because I remember coming in and there was a bottle of poison and a packet of razor blades on the counter, and I said, Chris, we need to talk.
All right, let's get on. Let's get on. We're going to do our...
Isn't that interesting, though? That's
Yes,
the key. The paradox, the Stockdale paradox is keep
All
your
right,
hope, keep focusing on the end, but don't
right.
put time constraints
I
on.
like it. All right, think tank words, and then we're going to get right into our content. So we've got 3 words
all
here.
generated from the Savo book and check
And
think
I
tank.
think our last episode, we didn't even work them in. So
No.
we're going to do better this time.
Oh, we are.
Mike, try to work
Shut
these
up.
in. All right, here are your 3 words. Ready? Grief, clinic, and wangle. What the heck is wangle?
I think you know. Oh, we have such fun, you know.
All right.
Always with the jokes.
Grief. What do you get to?
Oh man, well, you know, I've been through a horrendous amount of
Something
grief
you
in my
can't
life.
go over, can't go around, you got to go through.
That's right. You got to go through it. It dissipates over time. So maybe we can tie this back into Jim Stockdale and say that over time, you get through this stuff. It can feel horrendous at the time, grief especially, but now with the free spotting, there's even a means of processing that
Isn't
works.
that interesting?
Isn't that
There you go.
something?
Yeah.
So what about clinic?
Clinic, something where you're going to have special, I think of special, I can't even speak, specialization. You go to a clinic typically specializes in something. So what help do you need? What experts can you consult to get that help? Whether it's a clinic or just any expert. What do you
And when
think?
you get through the door of the clinic
And they
you
say-
meet the doctor, and the doctor says, if you'd worn a French letter, this wouldn't have happened.
All right. But yeah,
just wanted to say
clinic
French
makes me
letter.
think, where do you need to consult expertise in your life?
Right. That's good. That's good. Get the experts. And then you can wangle the right sort of ending to this.
Wangle.
You wangle it, right? Like, oh, maybe we can get a coat hanger and just wangle that. I think it means to sort of, not what you're thinking.
I have no idea what it means.
Okay, like wangle. Okay, let's get a freaking definition of this. We got to get this because
let's
this is
find
going to
out.
be too
Hey
annoying.
Siri, what does wangle mean? Manage to obtain by persuading or cleverly manipulating someone.
Oh, that's sounding very hypnotic.
That's
isn't
not
it?
at all what I thought. Okay.
I'm not surprised. It's not what anybody thought based on your
Well,
laughter
that's
and the French
interesting.
letter
So
reference.
all right, persuasion, manipulation. Well, a lot of the times people say, "Oh, hypnosis." That we talk about, say, conversational hypnosis,
Right.
and people think that means you're going to say magic words and it's going to mind
gonna go jump
control
off a
people.
bridge
Say,
or something,
Come
yeah.
on, that's ridiculous. But if you were to think about using hypnotic language, which are on these cards, which by the way, I think we
here's the
solved
box.
our international shipping
Are
problem.
you serious?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that another time. After you,
Well, maybe
after
you
you
want to tell them as well.
are you wangling that
I'm
deck
at,
of cards?
yeah.
Anyway, if you learn hypnotic language patterns, which really are just words that I was thinking about what these really mean. We're causing an emotional response. We're also causing a fixation of attention on certain things, and we're bypassing the critical faculty a lot of the time by using language that causes you to presuppose certain things are true. So therefore, to understand the sentence, you just assume everything else is also true, and life goes on.
Stop hypnotizing us. Those of you watching this, I recommend you rewind the last 20 seconds and just watch the absolute sincerity for this man while he's just spouting complete twaddle.
Nonsense.
And that was wonderful. Let's talk talking points. Here we go. NLP. For the newbies out there, what the heck is neurolinguistic programming, Chris?
Neuro-linguistic
I'll have a sip of this
programming.
perfectly
Funny
ordinary
enough,
water.
when you give it a name like that, it sounds like it's something special, and it has appeal when it sounds like it's something
I
special.
wonder what you were going to say for a minute
Yeah.
then.
We don't just call it models of thinking or anything like that. We give it a name. Anyway, neuro-linguistic programming comes out of the work of Bandler and Grinder from the 1970s, I believe
early
they
to
did this work.
mid-70s.
And really comes out of modeling 3 different people. We have Fritz Perls from Gestalt Therapy. We have Virginia Satir from Family Therapy and Dynamics. And we have Milton Erickson, which of course is the grandmaster of hypnosis of all
I think he was the
time.
best who ever lived.
I call him the Bruce Lee of hypnosis,
I'm
basically.
quite happy to be the second to him. Yeah.
So by modeling those 3 people, and I suppose they could have picked anyone, but
They happened to choose 3
would have
very
been-
effective therapists. Yeah.
And they ended up with NLP, and NLP is a series of models and ways of thinking and just doing things. And neuro. So what does it stand for? Neuro, meaning
neurology,
things that are happening in your brain.
Linguistic, using words and programming, which is really, they said, was a bad choice. It maybe patterning would have been better.
Maybe neurolinguistic patterning. Tony Robbins called his neuro-associative conditioning. And I think the programming and the conditioning maybe is a better word.
I think so too.
It does have a nicer feel to it. Programming makes it feel like mind control or something woo-woo.
Right.
It's not...
Well, my definition of NLP, it's not mine. I think it might have been Seymour and O'Connor, and I love this one. NLP is the science of personal excellence.
Yes, I think that's a great
Finding how to do
mm-hmm.
things better. We don't get 100 people who suck at something. Get the one person who does it well and find out how they do it.
Yeah, and we haven't done a podcast talking all about NLP in a while, so this is kind of nice to come back to.
Here's the great point. But I hear it doesn't work.
What's the it?
Yeah, what's the it? We talk about the meta model.
You can now use NLP to prove that it does work, because part of NLP is the meta model, which is using language to clarify language. And when people say, I'll give you a good example. Real life, just somebody comes in on a web chat on our website and says, how do I sign up for this? I don't know what page. I mean, the computer doesn't. Anyway, point being, you would want to ask clarifying questions, right?
Sure.
I mean, if you were at a store and someone says, "Hey, how much is this?" and you can't see what they're pointing at, you'd have to ask some sort of question to clarify.
I think my question would be, "Are you a dick?"
Yeah. So you're using NLP, which apparently doesn't work.
Of course, when someone pointed me to Wikipedia, it has a big article on how it's not been proven, and it doesn't, unless you have 20,000 people, and they say, it doesn't work. Well, how do you know? Well, nobody's done the research. Well, do the research. Why would you do the research on something that doesn't work? I mean, these people are. Let me do the dick chant. I've not done it in a while. Dick. The pause made it perfect.
It was very well done. I almost thought you were waiting for me to
and if NLP didn't work, I'd have to contact literally probably 100 and 120 people who don't have phobias anymore and tell them they actually still have phobias.
Yeah, just because of a quick NLP intervention.
Talk about it being a model of models, Chris. I like that.
Yeah, I suppose a model of models, meaning that if you have let's say you have a recipe, and so it's a recipe to create recipes.
Right.
So how do you create recipe? You have to have ways of thinking like, it's common that you would tend to mix these types of ingredients together, or this does this thing, this does this other thing. So you have a recipe for coming up with a recipe, and a model of models is basically that. That's what I think about.
That's very nice.
It's a way of modeling the process of modeling, or the idea of modeling.
Very clever. Very well. I give it to him because he's got the engineering degree and he would explain. Now, classic NLP, which some people call old NLP, which is not a good term. It's still valid. It's still
original.
Fantastic. That's the original. Bandler and Grinder, as Chris said in the 70s. Man, what?
The OG.
The OG. Yes, that's right. Now, it was highly influential in Tony Robbins' work, and he credits them. He did fine. There's no problem there. And the components of the original NLP involved, as Chris said, the meta model. Meta model, again, using language to clarify language. How specifically, how do you know that to be true? What would happen if you didn't? These very specific questions that come out of John Grinder being a linguist, which does help understanding that sort of thing. But then there's also the problem with the meta model. Is you can be a meta-meddler if you're not careful.
What specifically do you mean by that,
Shut up, you're
Mike?
doing it now. Yeah. when one learns the meta model, because it is so immensely powerful, what it's doing is it is creating a link between what is known as the deep structure that linguists like Chomsky and so on spoke of, and the surface structure. The surface structure is the words themselves, the obvious meaning, but the deep structure is all the stuff that has to be unpacked that is behind it.
Everything that would be really complicated to explain to somebody else. If you're telling a story about how you felt about a certain situation, you have actual emotions and neural pathways being triggered,
right,
and visual representations and all these things going on in your brain, maybe words that you're saying to yourself, internal dialogue, sounds that you're hearing or imagining, whatever. And you're communicating how much of that through words.
Right. Maybe 7% or something ridiculous.
Some small amount, right?
So we have to unpack it to get to the deep structure. And when you talk someone through the meta model, it's different than something like clean language or obviously the Milton model. But when you're doing this, it enables the person to get in touch with their own deep structure. It's like it connects the two and they get this communication line with their unconscious. But because it's so powerful, people learn the patterns, which are basically dealing with deletion, generalization, and distortion, which human beings do. We do it regularly, and that's fine. That's how we make sense of things. But we start to meta-meddle. And it's not good in relationships. You know, I'd like you to make supper now, dear. How specifically? Shut up. Get NLP. Stop nelping me. That's what one woman said. Stop nelping me.
Yeah.
So you got to know when to use it, when to.
Nelping, yeah.
And if you don't do that, you'll break rapport. Let's talk about rapport.
Okay, so rapport, there's another one. And actually, thank you for bringing that up, because it's another one of these things where if people understood what NLP really was, and it's difficult to explain the deep structure of all of this, but you wouldn't say, oh, it doesn't work. Okay, I think everybody in the world would recognize that being in rapport with somebody else is probably an important ingredient
life skill
to influencing them.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
In fact, this is something I was just thinking about yesterday. If you have rapport with someone and you can engage their emotions in some way, then they're more likely to act upon a suggestion that you offer.
You're far more persuasive right away.
Now, if you engage their
Stuff really
emotions
comes out.
because they're afraid of you, let's say, that's not the same thing as being
Coercion
in
is
rapport.
not a good idea. Right,
so if
right.
somebody was afraid or intimidated, that's not being in rapport. That's them wanting to get away from you. Now, they may have an emotion, but if they're engaged in an emotion of really appreciating being around you and laughing and having a good time and respecting you and feeling admiration or looking up to you or something like that, something good, that's rapport. Then when you offer some sort of hypnotic suggestion, that's much more likely to carry it out.
Well, I've said for years, and I think it's original to me, I've said with my students, as an NLP trainer, I said, in the presence of rapport, you can do near miracles. In the absence of rapport, you can do virtually nothing.
Right.
And it's a wonderful thing. And of course, we're talking about, remember I said Dr. Michael Brooks, he wrote a book on rapport that was just fantastic. It's a must read. Realize too that the basics are just matching and mirroring. You know, they tap their hand and you're sort of tapping yours at the same rate. And if they breathe, you breathe when they do it. You know,
physiology matching,
talking the
tonality
same system.
matching.
They're saying visual
volume.
terms. You don't go to auditory terms. Yeah, or John Grinder's ultimate rapport secret, which
The
I thought is
easier
brilliant. Just congruently pretend the person in front of you is the most important and fascinating person you've ever met in your life. Continue pretending that, and the mirror neurons in your brain will do the rest. So there you go.
So
what about the rep systems? We need to look
representational. So this is actually a cool one, because I think one of the simplest things that anybody can do immediately is to understand how representational systems and changing what we call submodalities can change how we feel about things.
Very much so.
Very much so. And so we'll do a quick example. So the representational systems are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which are the emotions and the physical feelings, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, inside of kinesthetic, you've got olfactory, which is taste, and gustatory. Sorry, other way around. Why did I say that?
We'll edit that out.
I was thinking about the next word I was about to say, and I said it wrong.
I think about the next word I've started to say, and it starts with D.
You've got olfactory, smell, and you've got gustatory, taste.
Yes.
There you go. Anyway, those are...
Although you're technically correct, because without the olfactory sense, you can't really taste anything.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I was wrong. It was funny. It was an example
nice
of
to hear
me
you admit you're wrong.
in my mind planning the next word I was going to say and how I was going to define it, and I mixed them up. Yeah.
My
Hilarious.
stomach is growling.
All right.
Jack the Growler.
Well, there you go. So
rep systems, yeah. And speaking in the person's rep system that they use, if they speak in the auditory sense, so did you hear that? What was the buzz in that room? I don't like the sound of it. If you speak in their system, you build rapport again. Now, what about the eye accessing cues, which apparently...
Well, I don't want to get to that yet. I wanted to continue with what we said we were going to do, which was let's explain how you can use those representational systems and the submodalities, which are the building blocks of them, to change the way you feel about something. So let's all imagine a conversation that you had maybe with somebody that irritated you recently. Pick any irritating conversation that you had with somebody.
Well, it was about 5 seconds ago.
All right. So if you were to close your eyes and imagine the sounds that were happening in that conversation, imagine that other person's voice, what can you do with that sound? What can you do with the submodalities?
Well, you can turn it up.
You could turn it up, turn it down. You could push it
Make them sound like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck.
Change the pitch, and imagine that irritating person is like a cartoon character or a Mickey Mouse or a high-pitched, squeaky chipmunk voice.
Sure.
Alvin,
or
Simon,
Stephen
and
King
Theodore.
does. Remember, apparently, that's how he generated this enormous volume of scary stories and did a great job at it. Based on his sales, when he did not work and got up from the computer, he had a voice in his head, a deep, scary monster voice saying, "Get back to work," and he would.
Yeah.
So you can do that. You can build all that in.
And I purposefully didn't go with a visual one because some people will say, I can't visualize, and I didn't want to deal with that. So
No, that's good.
yeah.
That's a good point. And I use the auditory one a lot, being primarily auditory. And when I have a gig, when I had a show back in the old days and wasn't up for it, as I'd be showering, I'd always wake up when I'd shower, which I always did naked for some reason. Did I scare you? You think somebody didn't? But in the shower, I'd start running some Wagner in my head, and it would always be Ride of the Valkyries from the Ring Cycle, Gotterdammerung, and I'd hear bum, 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 and it would get louder and louder. And by the time it got to the I was completely revved. I'd get out of the shower, dry off, and go.
Are you
knock
having a
him dead.
breakdown?
I am having a small breakdown. It's a Wagnerian breakdown, though, so it's very powerful. But you can work with these things. So get to the I-axis.
All
and
right,
cues.
so I-axis and cues are, again, these are a generalization because not everybody's brain is exactly the same, but there are some common ways that I-axising patterns seem to work on a consistent manner for most people.
On a consistent manner?
That doesn't even make any sense.
In a consistent basis.
All right.
That's all right. You're enjoying yourself. Go ahead.
Yes, apparently. All right, so we've got, you tend to look up
To
and
access
to
the
one
visual
side or
cortex.
the other to
Yeah.
access the visual cortex. People tend to hear things
Yes, they do.
to the sides, and they tend to have feelings by looking down.
to the
And to one side
down
or the
and
other.
to the right if they're
and
right-handed.
it may
generally.
depend upon whether they're right-handed or
But it
left-handed.
is
and
useful.
And you can't just assume that their brain works the way the picture says it should, so
Right.
you must
You have to
calibrate.
find
So we get
left
back
or
to
right-handed.
calibration.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You say like,
You don't
what's the
even-
front door of your house look like? And watch if the person goes up and left, they're aligned typically right-handed because they're going to eidetic visual imagery, which is visual recall. And I think everybody worldwide, I read this in an NLP book, everybody adheres to that, although they might be flipped around a vertical axis. Like my wife is neurologically aligned left-handed because she was left-handed and fell off a couch as a baby, broke her collarbones, and spontaneously switched to being right-handed.
Yes, you told that story before.
So,
yeah.
but the the Basques in Spain, they have a completely different I-axis and cue, I've heard.
Okay, I haven't heard that.
So there you go.
There you go.
Now, what about the fast phobia cure? This is a thing that NLP became known for really, really.
I still think
on.
I think we should spend a bit more time on the I-axis.
Okay, well, I'm
only
up for
because
that.
we haven't really taught anything of value here. So
Yeah.
there, I remember years ago there was a fun activity that you can do, which is you can ask some people, ask a person a series of questions.
Yeah.
that they won't lie to, just generic stuff like, "What did you eat for breakfast this morning?" And you say,
Sure.
"Oh well, I wouldn't ask you that because we
Because I
don't,
don't
eat
eat
breakfast."
breakfast, right.
But I might say something like, "How much?"
What whiskey did you have when you woke up?
What coffee mug did you use this morning? Okay, boom. You see his I-axis and cues for recalling
Yeah.
information. And I might say something to you like, "Hey, when you were younger, what was your hair like?"
Amazing.
And you're like, "Oh, the Led Zeppelin, long flowing." And again, he's recalling something, right? And I might ask a third question. It doesn't matter. Or I might ask you to make something up. Have you ever thought of what you would look like if you had a purple wig on? Now, he would, in theory, construct that. So he would go to the other side.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And you just ask a few questions and you calibrate. Then you ask the person to tell you three things. One thing that is not true, not something horrendously crazy or
Yeah,
anything. Just
yeah.
sort of, tell me something about your past.
Well, here, let's just clarify that. What I would do is when you get the I-axis and cues of someone, and I used to do the human lie detector on stage, as
Yeah.
you know, but when you got the I-axis and cues, you say to the person, tell me, and we did this in Minneapolis when I was hired to teach that company, tell me a true story about yourself, some event in your life, and lie about one point.
Exactly. That's it.
Just
That's it.
one
Lie
story, yeah.
about one
One
detail
thing.
of the story. Don't make it something crazy, but you also don't want to make it something super minor like.
Yeah, the camping trip the guy went on, and then the person will say, "Yep, the story's true, except the canoe wasn't red, was it?" No.
Yeah.
How do you know that? Because I have dangerous powers
Yeah.
beyond your comprehension.
So you'll
Like they
pick
push
it
on your
up
shoulder makes it
because
funnier.
you'll notice them going to visual recall,
And then suddenly-
for a little bit of the story, they'll go to visual construct, and usually that's when you'll tell, all right, they're about to lie. They're now
creating an
making
internal
up the
picture.
lie.
Yeah, it's not eidetic. It is a new internal picture.
And you'd be surprised if you do this, you'll probably get it right more often than you get it wrong by a lot.
Yeah, let them think you know everything about them.
So there you go. Play around with that one. Let us know how it works out for you. Now let's talk about the fast phobia.
Well, fast phobia cure really, I think it was mostly Bandler came up with that. But the idea that he got people who had phobias and people who had gotten over phobias and explored to find out what the difference was.
Yeah, and there's this nice way of thinking in NLP, which is, hey, if the phobia happened pretty much instantly, right? People go through an experience, now they're scared of spiders or something like that. Why should it take a really long time to undo that? If it happened neurologically in an instant, why shouldn't we be able to change it back to not having a phobic response
in an
also
instant?
in that?
Right, because you're making
neural
neuronal connections roughly about 1 million per second all the time.
You shouldn't have to sit down and lie on a couch and talk about your feelings for years.
And if you keep talking about your phobia, you can actually wind up enhancing it, making it worse.
Oh, you make it part of your freaking identity.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, if it wasn't, how many people identify with anxiety? Oh, my anxiety.
I'm anxious.
Oh, we're all talking about my anxiety. I went to the mall today, but then my anxiety, it's me. I identify as an anxious person.
Stop doing that.
Yeah.
Just stop. It's really horrible.
So
you do too well.
If you do too much freaking talking about your stuff,
talking about problems doesn't typically
just make
fix
it
them.
worse.
But the fast phobia cure, basically, without going into too much detail, you would work with the first time it happened, the worst time that was recent, hypothetical next time it could happen.
And what does it look like to do the fast phobia
the person
cure?
double dissociate. They imagine they're in a theater watching themselves on a screen, and then they
slow down. Give the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you want to be finished this week?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you see, there's a hell of a lot of stuff still
We can't do the whole. You just.
Okay. All right. So let me
pretend
clarify.
the person listening doesn't know anything about it.
Right. Well, let me start at the beginning. So if you have a phobia, we don't believe in facing your fear. We don't want to make it scary for you. What we want to do is erase it. So we're going to rewrite it, the same as I used to say to someone back in the day of cassettes. If you lend me, your Oppenheimer. He didn't, let's say Offenbach, the composer.
Your Bon Jovi
Offenbach,
cassette.
Baccarat CD, or let's say, rewritable CD, or a cassette, and I record Black Sabbath on top of it. It's never going to switch back again. It's been rewritten.
Yeah.
And that's what the brain does with this. So we don't want the person to go back into feeling how horrible you felt. No, they're associating into it, and we don't like to associate into trauma or any problem like that. It makes them feel it again. This method, they don't have to feel it. They imagine that the phobic experience is on a screen in front of them in a theater, and they're in the audience. So they have an empty theater. So they have dissociated 1 degree from it. They're looking at themselves on the screen before this happens. It's a freeze frame. Then you have them imagine they float out of themselves in the audience up through the glass into the projection booth. So now they're doubly dissociated. And because they're behind the glass of the projection booth in their mind, they're technically triple dissociated.
And they're not even really watching.
They're not even going to watch it.
The screen.
So they watch themselves in the audience, and the video runs black and white, grainy, indistinct, small, to the end of the experience, and freezes again when they're safe.
The bad thing has now happened, and it's over.
Then you have them float down and again, I can't do this. No, just pretend you do. Your brain will get it. Now they float down through the glass into themselves in the audience, and then float up into the screen and be associated in the experience. After it happened, they're safe again. Full 3D, full color. Run everything backwards in 2 seconds. Zzz, like that. Have them run it again, jump to the end, run it backwards. You can have them scramble it forwards and backwards.
So they're imagining, they're sitting, watching this about to watch it on a screen.
Yep.
They dissociate out again into the projector booth or whatever. There's variations on this. They're having the other you in the audience watch it on the screen while you're watching the other you watch it on the screen.
That's it.
In grainy, blah, 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 forward
Small,
direction.
black and white.
Then they associate back into the person in the chair, jump into the scene,
frame.
so they're now fully associated, looking through their own
3D,
eyes,
color,
but
vivid.
they run it backwards.
Even the sound in 2 seconds, super fast. The brain likes to learn fast. And run it a couple of times, check.
And you coach them through this
Get in break state,
multiple
move
times.
around, see if they can get it back. It's remarkable. Honestly, I've done this well over 100 times for people, got rid of deep down phobias. And Chris, I used a variety of methods with my own, but something like altosolariphobia, which I had, and I was in an altosolariphobia group and then nobody can fix a phobia. You've got it for life. Don't listen to him. He's trying to rip you off. I was just telling them how to get rid of it.
You sold nothing.
Yeah, I know.
But do you think that if you joined an altoceleraphobia Facebook group and identified as this problem that I am living with, and I'm part of a community of other people that have this problem,
yes, we can all talk about it.
Do you think they might want to hang on to that problem a little bit?
Oh, slightly. Absolutely, yeah.
Gives them some purpose.
I'm not going to say that the guy running that group was a dick. I will not say that.
You would never say that at all.
Never say it. So what about reframing? Reframing is the heart of so much of what we do.
Reframing
and we had Scott
is
Adams' book on reframing, which is fantastic.
Reframe Your Brain by Scott Adams. Excellent book. We did a podcast episode with him. We'll make sure we link to it in the show notes.
Correct.
I am saying that on camera simply so that when the show notes are produced by whoever produces them, that'll get in there.
Yeah.
Reframing. There are actually, and actually, Scott didn't talk about this in the book,
right.
So we'll just address content reframe versus context reframe.
Okay, so content is changing it, completely changing it. So you have, let's say you have a situation where, I don't know. I want to
like
do
the meaning.
It changes the
so
meaning.
A content reframe would be the example of the woman who constantly vacuumed her carpet because she wanted it to be clean and all those nice vacuum
and even the
marks
footprints of people in their slippers, their
would
house shoes,
irritate her and piss her off, and so she didn't want people walking on that freshly carpet
and making it dirty.
Yeah. So the content reframe is when the therapist says, "And those footprints on that carpet." They mean that you are surrounded by people who love you, that kind of thing, right?
So it changed the meaning.
The exact same content, but the meaning shifts as, oh yeah, this means this. So when something is happening and somebody offers you well, here's what it could mean, and you go, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. Yep. That's a content reframe.
Yeah, and Scott goes at it much more generally, but very powerfully. I love the example. It's the one I use all the time for
most
context.
of his reframes are content reframes in the book, I would say.
Come to think of it, I think they are. Context reframe is you take a behavior, an incident, whatever, and you say, in what context would this be good instead of bad? So the one I give, change situation where it would be appropriate. The example I always give: if you ran up the street in Toronto or any city with your face painted blue and screaming and yelling, they'd put you in the Clark Institute of Psychiatry or whatever their own city happens to have. But if you do that same thing, paint yourself blue, yell and scream, wave your fists at a Toronto Maple Leafs hockey game,
you're normal.
It's not only normal; it's approved behavior. It's encouraged. It's the same activity, different context. And remember, I said to you, the great reframe I experienced lately, that's been a blessing for me. I was a very resistant person. I just hated anybody imposing their will on me, even if it wasn't that, if it seemed like that. So when my wife of 42, 43 years, whatever, would say to me something like, oh, instead of going out for dinner on Saturday, right away my back would be getting up, right? Because someone's trying to control me. If it's, instead of going out for dinner, can we go up to Bolton and see Hartley and Christina, our relatives who are lovely people? Before I would have gone, I don't want to drive. I don't feel, I don't know. And then she's, you always resist me. So now my reframe is, she's not irritating me. I don't even have to say that part. I say, she's the love of my life. Yeah. She's the love of my life. So now she's surprised. She'll say, oh, can we go do this on Saturday instead? And I go, sure, sweetie. She's like, I said, notice has changed. I've reframed it.
Of course. Yeah. So content, you're changing the meaning of a situation. Context, you're usually taking a behavior or something like that and pointing out where it is strong, where it is useful. So if you have like a kid that just constantly taking things apart and wrecking things, oh, my child's always ruining the kitchen and breaking things. Oh, he's probably going to become a brilliant engineer, right? Something like that.
Or you find this is just so brilliant. This might be the funniest thing I've ever said. I don't know what he's about to say. Might be the funniest thing I've ever said.
All right.
So you're changing the context where it would be appropriate. So you decide to send your mother flowers instead of sending yourself flowers.
Okay.
That's so brilliant. Okay. Let's talk about...
And this is all stuff that I hope if you're watching or listening,
I hope you're watching
going,
or listening.
Oh, that's NLP? That's all obvious. Yeah, it should be obvious. That's a good clue that NLP is useful.
And you say to who specifically?
Reframing, rapport, imagination, and how the way that you imagine a situation can change how you feel about it.
Brilliant.
And all of this is coded in the brain through different neural pathways and axons and dendrites.
And it works. That's the amazing thing. It took me a while to learn when I was first studying NLP in 1992, so 30 years ago. it took me a while to realize running a process, I'm not just using suggestion, some sort of placebo effect and hoping it works. We are using neuroplasticity. We are changing the brain itself, which is, well, anybody doing NLP is. So that's amazing. Let's talk about perceptual position.
Yeah, let's do it because we're starting to get short on time. And so I'm going to talk
We're here
less.
for the bitter end.
All right.
Okay.
Perceptual positions is a really fun NLP activity, exercise. And I suppose if we were to just define what is a perceptual position, first of all, and then we can describe what the activity looks like.
Yeah.
But the idea being you have first position. It is you.
I.
I am
It's
I. It is you.
It's
If
ego.
you're in your
It's
own
ego
body,
itself.
your own mind, you're acting as you. Therefore, you're in
Point
first
yourself
position.
and say I. That's first position.
Yeah. Second position is the position of empathy, right? Where we are imagining that
You.
we're in someone else's shoes.
So it's you.
It's you.
It's all about
Yeah.
you.
Yes, it is. It's always about you.
You're feeling their feelings. You're experiencing their state by, in your mind, going into their situation. And when someone says, well, how do you think I feel? They're asking you to go into second position.
That's
with them.
right.
Yeah.
And that is a normal thing, right? We all do this.
But it can be bad. And
Yeah.
Derek Balmer, my mentor, said that when you're a therapist, as I was for about 5 years, he said, if you're a therapist, be careful. You can dip into second position to get a sense of their state and help them. But if you stay there too long and take it home, you can carry a lot of grief and pain home with you by taking on their second position. You need what he called a lifeline. And he said, when you're done therapy, stand up, move your eyes, shake your body, and shake off their state.
Yeah, exactly.
Which leads us to the third one.
Third position is the position of the observer. So
Them.
So if you were to imagine, actually, you are in third position watching us, each of us in our own first
That's
position.
right. Brilliant.
Yeah, and you're in third position watching the dynamic happen, right?
Now, some people-
normally the third position, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt
it's fine.
you.
Go ahead.
Normally we don't involve the third position. Third position is just external to the
It's
situation.
dissociated from the situation, not even dissociated from yourself, dissociated from the situation. And that's where you can make some phenomenal changes in insights into, you and your spouse or whatever significant other have these arguments, and you step outside the situation and watch both of you from the outside. You can get insights because when you're outside the situation in third, what can't you do?
When you're outside it, you typically don't feel the emotions.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the further the dissociation, the less it will affect you. Now, this is very useful because we used to do an NLP exercise. I've demoed it in the class. It's always
called
freaked people
perceptual
out.
positions, yeah.
So we get two chairs, put them facing each other, say, somebody who has an issue with someone, raise your hand. Okay, I went. Will you talk about it in front of the class? We don't need to hear about it. Will you work on it in front of the class? Yes. So they sit down.
And it might be positioning
facing-
two chairs, just
Yeah.
like Mike and I are here.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'd say, okay, now be inside yourself and look at the other chair and imagine the other person sitting in that chair and the situation between you. What is a word that explains how you feel to describe this situation?
And the person might say something like frustration.
frustration.
Yeah.
Okay, shake it off. Now go sit in the other chair and be that other person.
So you'd get up, you'd come over,
Sit down
you'd
there
sit, and then you
say,
would
look back at you. What is it like from their perception? And the person will sit there and they'll go, confused.
Yeah, I was just thinking that was going to be the word.
No,
Confusion.
mentalist.
Yeah.
So then you say, okay, shake that one off. Now stand up and step outside and look at the two chairs from the outside and watch the interaction between you and that other person for a few seconds.
and then they might go, oh,
What's the word?
misalignment.
Misalignment.
Something
Okay.
like that.
Now take what you've just learned and go back into first position and check again. So they do, and they go, oh, it shifted. Okay, what is it? Calmness. Oh, okay. Is that good enough? Yeah, it is. If they say no, you have them do another run. Just do it until it all shifts.
Yeah, and it'll be whatever word they come up with is going to be the perfect
Best
word
one
for them.
It will usually be a
Right.
nominalization.
Yeah.
You can't put it in a wheelbarrow. Now, I don't know if I told you this, but my initial mentor for NLP before I met Derek and another man who's passed, they both passed away, great trainers, Chris Dunkley, another Brit, terrific NLP trainer in classic code. And he said that he would get them then to stand on a chair.
Like a fourth position.
and
Yeah.
look down at the. Now, I've never found
think
that
that's
to be
a bit
necessary.
unnecessary.
Why
yeah.
stop there?
Yeah.
Why not fly to
Why not-
freaking Jupiter?
Why not go up to the top of the CN Tower, Mike? And
And then get in a helicopter and look at yourself in the CN Tower, watching the dick on the
Take
chair.
Elon
Yeah.
Musk's Starship to Mars and imagine a giant telescope looking back on Earth, looking at that man in the CN Tower who's looking down at the man standing on top of the chair, who's looking at the hidden observer
Yeah,
who's
lived in the house
watching
of Jack
him
Bill.
in the
Yes.
real chair.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's timelines, of course. Let's talk
All
about timelines.
Anyway, but use the perceptual positions
to get insights.
You
to the
can do
situation.
this yourself.
Oh,
you can,
absolutely.
You can coach yourself through it. Place the 2 chairs. Run the exercise just as we've described it. Let us know how it works out for you.
Brilliant.
Okay, timelines.
Timelines. I think it was Bandler came up with it. Grinder might have had something to do with it. I'm not sure, John. If I'm wrong, forgive me. But timelines. Yeah, the idea that human beings codify events. Notice I say codify, the British one, not codify, which sounds like a fish. But yeah, halibut, terrible. So no, I like halibut. But the idea is that you're coding events in time and space.
Exactly. Because how do you know if you were to ask a person a question? Hey, how long ago were you in grade 5?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you, well, they could do the math. Maybe this is not a good example.
No, it's a
but
terrible
if you
example,
ask somebody a question like,
Let's reframe. What's an
when's the
example
last
useful?
time you went to the mall? And they go, oh, it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Yeah. How do you think about it? What did you have for breakfast this morning? What did you have for breakfast yesterday? How do you know which one was today and which was yesterday?
Because
we codify them in
somehow we
space.
must code it in our
Yeah,
brains. And
we tend to put the past behind us, the future in front, or the past off to the left, the future at the side. It's in our language. Oh, he's put that behind him now. Like all of these things, you need something to look forward to. And it's a very useful thing because we can float over this imaginary timeline, make all kinds of shifts. And the person who did it best, I think, was Tad James, late great trainer, who found a way and created timeline therapy, which was his own trademark one, which I'm trained into master level, of course. But yeah, timeline, noticing that things happen in time. And now we got to...
You're just pointing things out without adding enough value, though. So how are people going to use this?
Okay, well, the way it can be used by a timeline therapist or a timeline, an NLP person who knows the basic of timelines, is you can have the person imagine, and you say something like, if I was to ask you where the past is to you, which way would you point? Or if you were to ask your unconscious, well, to me, it's over there. Okay. And if I were to ask your unconscious mind where the future is for you, where would that be? Oh, it's over there. Okay. And where would the present be for you? And people who are in time, in the experience, typically say, it's where I'm standing or sitting. And people who are through time, who see time in front of them as an arc or a V or something, the present is in front. Now, notice one is like a movie. You're jumping into the frame. That's the in time. The events of the past are behind, the future are ahead. And people who are in time, like I am, tend to be able to jump into memories very, very clearly with the emotions, everything. People who are through time, who have the events in front of them, it's more like a day timer. They can see events or like a book. They're flipping pages. But by changing even which one they represent to themselves, you can change their life. So somebody who is addicted to something, they tend to be in time because they can get into the feelings very strongly. Just switching them to through time so they're not getting the benefit for the addiction anymore will often help to unlock the problem.
Could you also elicit information, for example, somebody's addicted to something like a drug, and they, if you ask them to imagine where is that next hit of the drug in the timeline, I'm going to imagine it's going to be very close to there now.
Well, for you, yeah.
So what if you pushed it way out on their timeline? Imagine that next hit of the drug as so far out, and it just vanishes.
Oh, for sure, buddy. Yeah. In fact, one of the fastest therapies I've ever done was with timeline. When I was a therapist, I had somebody come in. Oh, I'm in a state of overwhelm, which is a nominalization again. And so I say, well, you've got too many plates. There's the metaphor. Too many plates. Too many
plates I'm spinning.
I'm juggling too many freaking hatchets or chainsaws or whatever the hell it is, or small pieces of colored glass with a window on it.
Sure, okay.
Could be anything. So they're juggling too much on the go. So I elicit the timeline and find out, everything is scrunched together. All the memories are, and I'd say, what if I just take the end and stretch it out there and separate them all? I've seen the person get a flush of integration, like, oh, that feels way better. It's created perception.
What we're doing here is by metaphorically representing things in their life with this timeline and then changing the metaphor.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well put, Captain Engineering Boy.
It changes the way they perceive it. And if we all understand that we relate to things that we already know, that's how we learn. We connect one thing, one concept to something else that we know.
Yes.
If you change the model of the concept, it changes the way you feel about it.
Brilliant. In fact, that leads right to submodalities, which are the building blocks of human experience. I think submodalities came out of Bandler's work entirely. But it became de rigueur for NLP people to just change submodalities for everything. And as Derek Balmer said, how many bloody ways of shifting submodalities do we need? People thinking they've come up with something new, and they're just doing submodality changes. So in other words, the literal reframe, when you go to bed at night, the garbage can technique, if you think of what was great about today, oh, I love that lunch I had with that beautiful woman, whatever it is, think about the event, freeze frame it at the peak moment, and then associate fully into it so you're feeling it. Turn up the brightness, turn up the color, make it vibrant in 3D, and then put a frame around it, stick it on a wall, turn a museum light on over it, and leave it there. You'll make it stronger, you'll make it last. Now, what about the stuff that's bad? Something, that disempowering argument I have with that other driver where we nearly punched each other's lights out. Well, wouldn't happen with me, but anyway, so what you do is you freeze frame the argument. Shrink it down, make it small, dissociate, see yourself in the picture. In fact, I wouldn't do sticking it on a wall for an empowering thing. I'd just
I was wondering why you
just
said
stay
that.
associated.
Yeah.
But I fixed it before he said it. So in
There
a
you
way,
go.
correcting
In a way,
it.
you were still correct.
I was doing the right thing by correcting it, which was the right thing to do.
When you dissociate, you tend to decrease the emotions. If you
Absolutely.
wanted to place it on the wall as a resource with this idea that you can take it anytime you want, reassociate into it, that might be a nice way to
Sure, but
make
shrinking
a-
it,
make-
making it black and white and grainy, putting a frame around, sticking it on a wall, that is now going to distance you from it. And the great thing is if you do the garbage can technique every night for maybe a month, you don't have to do it anymore. Your unconscious mind will
Where
do
does
it
the garbage
automatically.
can come into it? I feel
The
like
garbage cans, you take the bad things from the day, shrink them, push them down so they don't affect you anymore.
All right.
You're helping the human givens theory, the whole idea of your brain depotentiating negative emotion for the
Are you
following day.
imagining putting them in an actual garbage can?
No, it's
once you
just
dissociate?
shrinking it down
Yeah.
is essentially it is.
All right.
You've thrown it out, you don't need it. and you
Strange
stick it
name.
on a wall. Why? Because you want to keep the learnings from it.
Right.
You want to keep it. You don't want to feel it, though. That's
like
it.
that.
Okay, talk to us about new code, Chris.
Well, new code, as I learned from you, is basically old code, but with a lot more physical motion in it.
Well, it's more than basically old code, and I don't want John Grinder calling us to task on this one. But new code, what you'll
I
notice
just said
here,
that to
he's
pass
right
it
that I
back
know,
to
just
you.
to pass the time more like it. I'm starving. So what we see here is with new code, there'll be much more physical motion.
Right.
And it is different in that regard. It's not a matter of shifting submodalities all the time. Example of a perfect way of looking at the difference between classic code and new code is this. Classic NLP, if we need a resource. Okay, can you think of a time you had it for even 1 second? Yeah, I was really confident when I told that joke to my family and I felt empowered. Okay,
So go
go
into your
back in your
past.
personal history. Take a dipper. Take that state from there. Bring it into the present with all the junk, the contextual junk attached to it and re-experience it.
Instead of just creating the high performance state
brand new
in the moment,
high-performance
which will
state.
typically use the chain of excellence as
Right.
one of the models, which means you're going to breathe in the way that you breathe then. You're going to hold your body in the position that you would want it to be, not the way that you
Right.
did back then, the way that you're imagining. Performing amazing. You're going to breathe the way you would if you were performing amazing now. You're going to stand the way you would with the same muscle tension, maybe even speaking and everything about thinking the way you would think if
Yeah.
you were performing awesome. And then that drives your state, of course, and then that drives the performance.
Excellent.
And yes, so a good example might be when people say, hey, I like to work at my desk, and instead of sitting, I find I'm way more productive if I have a standing desk. And Timothy has a little treadmill under his.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Sometimes he walks and works, and you're moving, you're breathing differently. Do you think it's going to change the way you feel and perform?
Absolutely,
Of
it
course,
will.
right?
So we're getting that kind of motion. So if we're changing submodalities with new code, we're not just imagining them changing. We're using our
physically
physical
doing
hands
it,
and
yeah.
moving the things and shrinking them, and by involving the bilateral. By involving bilateral motion, bringing that into it, both hemispheres of the brain, it makes the effects very, very powerful, and which immediately brings to mind for me, and there's some of these in my peak performance recording going
Yeah.
back to 1995. One of them I absolutely love is Walking with Grace and Power. This is a tremendous intervention. When we move the body, remember on Chain of Excellence, we have our performance is governed by our state, which depends on our physiology, which changes everything. Once we change our breathing at the top, we'll move down through the entire hierarchy. So we get the person to change their breathing. So they think of something that bothers them, a choice point again. Maybe put a hula hoop on the floor like I used to do when I was working with clients. Stand in that, feel that bad state. What did you see? What did you hear? And I'm giving them time to get into it. And as soon as it's clear, step out suddenly and leave all that bad stuff inside that hula hoop. Just pretend
Then
you do
get
it.
into an awesome state.
Right. We
Yeah.
leave that there. Then they walk up and down breathing. They try on different things. Move your head from side to side. Relax your shoulders as you walk. Swing your arms more. And they're walking back and forth. When they're in a very powerful state, by changing their breathing and their physiology, they now walk through the space of the hula hoop without looking at it. That's staying up, not collapsing into it. Go through it. Go through all what you saw. Then walk through it again. All that you heard. Then all the feelings. Walk through, demolish it. And I'm coaching the person. Now go back in and breathe in all those changes and notice how great you feel. And they do. And then you say, now rescript. The rescript is important. You change the context. So, or even the result. So let's say the argument they had that they felt bad. And you say, now the argument ends, and see yourself really happy and the other person shaking hands.
Yeah.
They do that. You've now rescripted. That's it. Now they try to get it back. That's the test, future pace, right?
Yes, and they won't be able to. They'll not be able to form the same kind of memory of it.
Absolutely.
And the emotions will have changed.
Now, when you do this a few times, you start to get so you can just say to yourself, walking with grace and power. I had a keynote in Boston a number of years ago, and I went and walked down by the harbor, and it was wonderful. And that morning, I just walked with grace and power as I walked around, and I walked to the event.
Gets you in the zone.
Park 2 blocks away, get in a powerful state, walk in and dominate the
Yeah,
room.
because all you were doing there is getting into the state. You weren't
not trying to fix something.
change a memory of a bad thing that happened. This is you getting into the zone and using walking with grace and power, not walking through the choice point to destroy it,
Right.
but just to
purely
turn
generative.
on an awesome state.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
as Derek used to say, when you walk with grace and power and use these interventions, his outcome for us was to live with wisdom and balance. Isn't that great? Living
love
with
it.
wisdom and balance.
Yeah.
There's also theater of the mind, which is wonderful. If you have an issue with a human, you have the person sit. Imagine they're in a theater, and it's the interval, it's the intermission.
Oh yeah,
everybody's
it's
gone out in the
way
lobby
to change somebody else
by
changing
yourself.
you. That's
You.
right. And we teach this in NLP Essentials. I believe we have a course called NLP Essentials. It's on our website. If you go to MikeMandelHypnosis.com, you can click on the products link and check it out. It is also included with lifetime access to the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. So if you're interested in that, you can always reach out to support to ask questions. But theater of the mind, walking with grace and power, Dock of the Bay, which we're not going to have time to explain. There's all these different awesome interventions.
And so we think there's great value in classic NLP, and there's great value in new code as well. And they are ways of having an amazing freaking life. Look, guys, we are the proof that this stuff works. I mean, we really are. This guy left all his life behind except his family.
I
changed
started
everything.
learning this stuff from you in 1993 because that's the first
30
year
years,
that you did the brain software presentation, which became your brain software keynote.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Which became our brain software
podcast.
product.
The reason we named the podcast, and then we created the video series around it too. Yeah, but this stuff is awesome. 1993, I remember sitting in that Porter Hall, Carleton University,
Right.
and you gave, the first time I saw it at least, the brain software lecture for about 2 hours, and we did submodality work. We did standing up physiological changes. I was going, this is freaking amazing. Plus, you taught the agree and repeat strategy, which is the way to get what you want.
Right. Now, that must have been purely classic NLP because I hadn't studied new code yet with Derek until a couple of years later.
You did have physiology in there, but yeah, you hadn't necessarily studied it. Maybe it was just other stuff you already knew. But the idea of looking up and saying yes, and then you would
Anchoring
give us
that
like
state.
you would even say something like, okay, now try to be depressed. And everyone starts laughing because it's practically
Can't do it.
impossible.
Yeah.
And
You're looking up, you're bathing your brain in serotonin, you put a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
And smiling 20 minutes a day, people have found it affects depression.
so it's not
unbelievably in a positive
technically
way.
new code, but
But there was the motion.
The
in it and
idea
so
is
on.
there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's Chris.
We got to wrap it up.
Yeah, you're going to give the empowering question. I'm going to give the Metafive, which
All
is
right.
Derek Bomber Metafive. So it fits perfectly.
Here we go then. We're going to wrap up with the empowering question and the Metafive, one better than a metaphor. So which of these NLP principles and interventions are interesting enough for you to give them a chance just to see what kind of immense change you can make in a very short time that has the potential to change your life or someone else's life?
That's right. Brilliant. Derek Bomber, in our class, he was telling the story of one of the new code interventions we did. And he's the guy I got my trainer certification from. Derek was brilliant, and we brought John Grinder to Toronto twice, and Derek was amazing. And he did this thing that I thought was so elegant and clever. He was doing an intervention called stalking the automatics. The idea, whenever you do something without thinking, like somebody would smoke, I cured smoking with one session, like so quick. You say, I want you to imagine there's another you on the other side of the room, and he's not smoking yet. And it could be anything, overeating, whatever. And he put some things in the way, like a big flower pot and stuff. And he said, I want you to sneak up on him and jump right into the space he's in. Now, he's going to try to catch you. So he's going to try to smoke. And every time you start to move towards him, if he sees you and notices you, you have to jump back and stop. You're jumping out of the experience. Sneak up behind the things, get closer and closer. One woman, he said, and then when you jump in, then the problem disappears. You've re-scripted everything. One woman could not get more than a couple of feet without the other her turning and seeing her in her mind. Mm-hmm. Derek took her into the closet, opened the door just a crack, and he's saying to the closet, okay, look from here. She noticed you. He had to start there and then distanced her, and then she was able to cure it. I thought that's freaking brilliant.
That is awesome. Oh, man, that's fantastic. So, NLP, use it, enjoy it. It's fantastic. It'll change your life. Care. This has been episode 245 of the Brain Software Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode because we got to go to lunch. Thanks again, and good night.